Okay, hello and welcome to the MSDynamicsWorld.com Spring 2014 CRM webcast series. I'm Jason Gumpert, and joining us for today's session is Dynamics CRM consultant and MVP Jukka Niiranen. Jukka is a consultant at Digital Illustrated in Finland, but most of you probably know him from his writing, both on his own blog and sometimes on MSDynamicsWorld.com. This is Jukka's first formal webcast presentation for us, and we are really glad to have him on the line today. So as we get started, I just want to add that we invite you to add your feedback and ask questions during the presentation, and there will also be a poll question to look out for in a little while. Please use the Q&A tab that you see to the right of the slides to ask your question anytime, and I'm sure Jukka will make time at some point for taking some of those questions. We're also going to be tweeting some of the things we learned today. We'll be using the hashtag MSDynamicsCRM, and we'll also be watching that if you have comments or questions there. So without further delay, please allow me to welcome our speaker, Jukka Niiranen. Jukka, are you there?
Okay, thank you, Jason. So hello to everyone who's joining the live webcast today. So my name is Jukka Niiranen, and for the next 50 minutes or so, I'll be talking to you about customizing Dynamics CRM 2013 and how the platform has changed over the years. So before we get moving on to the actual agenda of the session, we'll be looking at both the new opportunities that CRM 2013 offers, as well as some important considerations resulting from the extended and revised platform features that it has today. We'll start with a short history lesson that examines the long-term evolution of Microsoft CRM platform to better understand some of the previous constraints and assumptions that may have affected the design of current customer solutions. Then we'll move on to an exploration of the different client options that the mobile computing era has brought onto the CRM solution design canvas now. I will talk a bit about how I see the high-level approach of customizing Dynamics CRM gradually moving away from the data model-driven design work and towards a more holistic user experience-based design. Then I will close things off with a look into the new capabilities available in CRM 2013 for creating business applications that can feel more responsive to the end users without actually having to develop any extensive custom code. And as Jason mentioned, I'll do my best to leave some room for questions at the end of the presentation. And so before we get started, I'll do a quick introduction of myself. So my name is Jukka Niiranen, and I'm a CRM consultant based in Helsinki, Finland. I've been in the business of customer relationship management for most of my professional career, and worked with Dynamics CRM platform starting from the year 2005. Initially, I started on the customer organization side as a CRM power user, and then I moved on to a consulting role working for Microsoft partner companies. I spend quite a lot of time on social media channels, so you can find me on a variety of networks spreading the Dynamics CRM gospel to those who want to hear it. I like to share my thoughts and discoveries around the product features on my personal blog called Surviving CRM, which you can find from the URL shown there on the slide. And if you're on Twitter, then be sure to also follow me there for some CRM-related updates on his tweet stream. Last year, I received the Microsoft MVP title for my CRM community work, and that's, of course, has been a great honor for me personally. And in my day-to-day work, I'm mostly positioned as a functional consultant or CRM application architect role, which means that I get to work fairly closely to the actual end users of the application. My personal focus is on ensuring that the solution design on top of the CRM platform are easy to approach by the users, and that they deliver relevant and meaningful information that makes the users' everyday lives easier. Then a few words about the company I work for. So it's called Digital Illustrated Finland. And we describe ourselves as an agile technology agency that creates business value with Microsoft technologies. How we aim to deliver on this promise is by building solutions with a clear focus on the business results and end user experience instead of the underlying software. We work with many notable clients in the Helsinki capital area, building and implementing solutions for social collaboration, customer relationship management, and marketing automation, to name a few examples. Our toolkit consists of several Microsoft platforms, such as SharePoint, Dynamics CRM, Yammer, Azure, using a creative combination for solving the real-life business problems of our customers. although we focus mainly on the Finnish market, there's now a brand new app out there on the Windows Phone Store that's available globally to all the users of CRM Online. It's called CRM Goals, and as the name suggests, it allows you to quickly view the progress of your goal records stored in CRM just by glancing the start screen of your Windows Phone 8 device. So please check it out at crmgoals.com after the session and download the free app onto your smartphone. Now, before we discuss the latest trends and new features of CRM 2013, let's take a trip back in time and have a look at the history of the Dynamics CRM platform. This is going to lay out the starting point for the evolution that has led us into where we are now, and hopefully also with some new information about the origins of the different features, as I'm sure that only a few will have had first-hand experience with the very earliest versions of the product. This picture shows what I call the first chapter of Microsoft Dynamics CRM, covering 4 different major version releases between the years 2003 and 2011. The very first version of Microsoft CRM released in 2003 was strictly a customer relationship management application focused on Salesforce automation and service case management. Given the share of Microsoft's Office package, the Outlook integration was naturally one of the first differentiators for the product to gain attention in the market. The customization capabilities of CRM 1.0 were quite limited, which meant that many consultants ended up either creatively repurposing the predefined entities to meet the customer's different processes, or whereas performing some unsupported modifications to the application that would then later on cause problems when upgrading the solution to the next versions. There never actually was a version 2 of Microsoft CRM, but rather this release was cancelled and the product team proceeded directly to launching the version 3.0 in 2005, later in the year. And this version laid out the core end-user feature set of CRM for many years to come, with the addition of the new marketing module alongside sales and service. The UI also found its now familiar format with the menu and form layouts. But the real breakthrough feature of CRM version 3 was the support for custom entities, because that pretty much meant that the sky was the limit for the custom data model that you could develop with the application. And this marked the start of the XRM journey, meaning any relationship management, where the Dynamics CRM product was now then being presented as a platform for building your own line of business applications that didn't necessarily have anything to do with traditional CRM use cases. Version 4 in 2007 introduced many significant changes on the platform side, but that didn't necessarily show up as features to the end users. While, of course, multi-language and multi-currency support were important for making Dynamics CRM a viable option for larger customers, multi-tenancy was the feature that really opened up the doors for all new delivery models of the CRM software. It was initially offered by traditional hosting partners, and then later on by Microsoft themselves when the CRM Online Cloud service was launched in 2008 in North America. Other notable changes in this version were new technologies for building workflows and developing plugins, and also some improvements to the reporting capabilities. While the version 4 didn't look too different from version 3, the next release of CRM 2011 brought in a lot of new components for the user interface. Visualizing the data didn't require running separate reports anymore, but instead you could show them as interactive charts in the application that were available on the views and forms, or you could compile them onto these attractive dashboards that we have come to know now. Another key change was the introduction of the ribbon menu formats, which had earlier appeared in the Office 2007 product family. And when you add into this package the new client that was developed by the Outlook product team, then CRM 2011 certainly appeared to contain a lot more bang for the buck for the end user. At the same time, the system customers were also introduced to the new solution model that provided a mechanism for managing multiple solution packages from several different solution vendors inside the same organization without them having interfering with one another. So looking at this first chapter of releases between the years 2003 to 2011, it really could be considered quite a steady evolution of the platform's capabilities. This is evident in the approach how with each version there were quite many new features added alongside the existing features to keep building up a package that was better able to cover the needs of large organizations with more diverse requirements for their CRM software. The platform components that were originally more CRM-specific were also replaced with technologies that were better aligned with the big picture of Microsoft's stack, like SQL Server reporting services, Active Directory federation services, and so on. The previous version from today, the CRM 2011, was really the peak of this evolutionary path. There was quite a remarkable number of features packaged into the software product that still, to a large extent, behaved like the version 3 product from 5 years earlier. And upgrading from one version to another seemed to always offer you more of everything while still retaining a reasonable level of backward compatibility to the customizations that had been applied in the growing number of customer organizations at that point. Now, instead of just continuing on this path and releasing a new CRM 2013 version with even more of everything, Microsoft decided that it was time to step back a bit and evaluate the course of the Dynamics CRM product before this next release. As we can see later on in the presentation, CRM 2013 is a release that changes a number of things and also takes away a few previously available options instead of just adding more ingredients into the product. And that's why I personally consider these changes to be significant enough to call it a paradigm shift that has essentially started the next chapter for Dynamics CRM. So let's next have a look at some of the evidence available to back these claims up. Looking at the user interface changes in two popular CRM products over the past 7 years illustrates the fact that Dynamics CRM has taken quite a considerable leap in terms of the user experience. If you originally deployed MSDynamics 3.0 back in 2006 and have since then upgraded your environment via the subsequent releases to the current CRM 2013 version, your application will look very different today than it did when you originally started your CRM journey. This is illustrated on the blue arrow on top of the screen showing the UI design for Microsoft CRM products. And now, major redesigns like this are not something that you can take for granted when it comes to business applications. As an example, Salesforce has chosen a very different path with their products, and at least on the surface, they remain quite closely on the evolutionary path rather than trying to reimagine what a CRM application should look like. The green arrow on the bottom illustrates the development of this competing product's user interface. I would guess that one of the key reasons why Salesforce has adopted the practice of gradually evolving their application's feature sets and the UI is the fact that they've been able to leverage the advantages of the cloud delivery model for a much longer time than Microsoft. Since there's never been a constraint that would have forced them to ship a new major version only every 3 years, then the logical choice has simply been to avoid upsetting their customer base with any major paradigm shifts in the operational business application that they use. When you can roll out incremental improvements to a product several times a year, then this strategy sounds like a much safer choice than throwing out an everything's different kind of a release out there and seeing how the customers will react. But with Dynamics CRM 2013, Microsoft has, however, chosen to take a different approach here and deliver an update that will not go unnoticed for sure. And we'll explore the reasons behind this and the end results as we proceed further in the presentation. During the recent years, there's been an increasing emphasis placed on the usability requirements for applications in general. With the trends for a mobile-first design principle in development software, as well as the consumerization of IT that has brought personal iPads and shadow cloud applications into the workplace, it may seem like the value of ease of use in computer application would be somewhat of a new recent discovery. But if we look at the design principles for the very first version of Microsoft CRM from 10 years ago, shown on the left side, and then compare it to the CRM 2013 design manifesto on the right, we can actually find a lot of similarities between the two. They both emphasize the importance of simplicity in the design of a CRM application, and this is quite an understandable goal given that the what the general consensus is towards the typical usability of enterprise software perceived by the end users of it. But the fact is that no one ever sets out to build an intentionally complex application, but that's still where the path may eventually lead to as you accumulate more and more features over time. If you start with a simple business application aimed for just managing your accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, and activities related to them, then one day you may just wake up and realize that you have a software platform in your hands that has 100 buttons for the user to click and strange terminology in the UI like roll-up queries, confusing the users who are not familiar with the product from earlier times. And this is basically where Dynamics CRM had ended up during the first chapter of its existence by following the evolutionary path. It had accumulated a wealth of features to tick all the right boxes in the functional requirement specification from customer, as well as having an extensive SDK and customization tools for Microsoft partners to deliver tailored solutions built on top of the platform. And in the right hands, it was an excellent toolkit for building a CRM solution to suit the needs of various different types of organizations in different industries. But regardless of this, there was still something missing from the equation, though, and that issue is highlighted by the last of the 5 design pillars of CRM 2013 shown above. There just wasn't enough love from the end users. The experience that the end users were getting when they were working with their CRM application just wasn't living up to their expectations anymore. And the problem was that these users had grown accustomed to a better user experience with their own mobile devices and with the own apps that they had selected. And when comparing this to the CRM application that their employer had selected for them, then this just wasn't up to the same standards anymore. And this conveniently leads us to the second topic of the day, which is how the rise of mobile computing has affected the business requirements and user expectations for business applications like CRM. Mobile computing as such is not a very recent concept at all. The first mass production smartphone, the Nokia communicator, was released in 1996, which is like almost 20 years ago already. And around the same time, Microsoft was also busy developing their Pocket PC variant of its Windows operating system to cater for the range of devices that resembled traditional notebooks with their stylus-based UIs. As we can see from the image on the left, the target here to be making the mobile device and applications on it as close to the full PC equivalent as possible. And it took until the year 2008 that the world realized that this wasn't going to be the way that it wasn't the format of mobile computing that we would eventually adopt into our everyday lives. When the Apple App Store opened up for the iPhone that year, the concept of what a CRM application for smartphones should look like and how it should behave was essentially redefined at that moment. Now, considering that the traditional 3-year release cycle for enterprise software in the year 2008, then Microsoft had just delivered the version 4 of their CRM application into the market, and I'm pretty sure that they were already far in defining the scope for the next CRM 2011 release already. And basically, this meant that they were not really going to be in the forefront when it came to the new style of CRM apps. With no modern smartphone apps available from Microsoft themselves, naturally the ISVs rushed in to fill this gap and introduced a variety of mobile CRM products that made it possible to access CRM data on a modern touchscreen-based device. And at one point, the Microsoft Dynamics product team announced that they would incorporate one of these ISV products into their own core product offering by branding it as an official Microsoft solution for mobile CRM. But these plans were later on scrapped, and Microsoft revealed that actually they had decided to build the required mobile clients in-house rather than acquiring the technology from a third party. And in the CRM 2013 release, eventually we were given the mobile CRM applications from Microsoft themselves. In addition to the Windows Phone and Windows 8 operating systems, there's now solutions also available for other popular mobile platforms. Let's have a look at the current client matrix in more detail and see what this new landscape means for the CRM users. The web client on the left is most often referred to when discussing the reimagined user experience of CRM 2013. With the cross-browser support introduced slightly ahead of this release, it's the most widely available client type, supporting a vast majority of browsers and platforms out there in the world of traditional computing. The new form layout makes good use of the wider screen resolutions, especially with the new tile-based navigation bar having been moved to the top of the page in this release. But even in the age of mobile computing, a great big portion of the CRM end users will be working with a PC that has Microsoft Outlook installed for email messaging and calendar management. The CRM Outlook client has been a key selling point for Dynamics CRM since day one, and it remains a critical component of the platform still today. But you'll notice that the traditional menus of the CRM Outlook client are now quite different from the new web client experience that CRM 2013 delivers. While there are also hints of a tile-based UI present in the web client, the real touch-based user experience is delivered with the CRM for Tablets app. Despite it looking very much like a Windows 8 specific application, you can actually get an almost identical client for the Apple iPad and also select the Android tablets in the coming Source Stack 1 release. Another touch-based experience can be found in the pocket-sized Dynamics CRM mobile app that's available for the top 3 smartphone platforms, meaning Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. Compared to the CRM for Tablets app designed for a horizontal view of tiles and lists, the mobile app is optimized to fit vertical screens as small as 3.5 inches. And the feature set found in the smartphone version is much more limited than in the 3 other client types, with the focus being on just quick viewing of data and maybe some very lightweight editing. All of these 4 client types are available to the licensed Dynamics CRM user with no additional cost tied to the type of device being used. So with one CRM system, you get many clients if you buy Dynamics CRM today. Let's now then explore the differences between these client types to get a better understanding of what the selection means for the CRM system customizer role. As mentioned, most of the attention will typically be given to the web client UI when designing a Dynamics CRM solution. Alongside the new global navigation bar, a significant change to the familiar Dynamics CRM user pattern is that the application works now in a single browser window instead of pop-up windows for each record. You'll still occasionally run into menus that open up in separate windows though. The record forms also have a new default layout of 3 columns, which provides a much wider screen of information without the need to scroll down further the form. And of course, the ribbon is no more, which means that there's even more space visible in the UI. In the Outlook client, the navigation pattern hasn't changed, so it remains to a large extent identical to the CRM 2011 structure. It still behaves like a native module within Outlook, presenting the CRM records and actions in a similar fashion as email records and their related tools. The sitemap is presented as a folder-based hierarchy, not a navigation bar itself like on the web client. Also, the views behave the way they did in the previous CRM version, but once you click open a record, then you'll get a pop-up window that looks almost identical to the new web client form. You'll be able to navigate to related child records from there, but a global navigation with the top-level areas is not going to be presented in the Outlook client. In the main window, you'll also see the CRM ribbon in its familiar format, whereas on the record detail windows, the new slimmed-down version known as the command bar is used. And one CRM 2013 feature also that isn't available in Outlook client is the global quick rate button. The CRM for Tablets app is a brand new client, and it has very little in common with the old user interface of the previous versions. Although the UI is very specific to the tablet app, the interesting thing here is that the underlying entity forms are actually exactly the same as they are in the web and Outlook clients. But the similarity covers only the form definition like fields and sections, since the presentation of the record data is completely different. The content of the form is rendered with a set of rules that have been designed to work better in the sideways scrolling, touch-optimized user interface of the tablet application. Despite of this, not all of the standard form features are supported in the tablet app, and the most notable limitation is the lack of support for custom HTML web resources or iframe content embedded from other applications. There is support for JavaScript on tablet app with some limitations, of course, on content that's not available there. And you can leverage the new business rules feature in CRM 2013 to build some client-side business logic without any custom code. Contrary to the Outlook client, here the quick create forms actually are enforced as the only way to input new records, which kind of doesn't make sense given the more restricted ability to enter large quantities of text without a physical keyboard on the tablet. The CRM mobile app for smartphones is actually a direct evolution from the earlier CRM Mobile Express client, which was a lightweight browser client for working with CRM records, available already in the earlier versions. The form definitions here are based on the previously available mobile forms for entities, which means they have a completely different form editor experience than the standard CRM customization menus. Due to the constraints of the smartphone screen, the forms are just simple single-column representation of the records with an absolute bare minimum of the CRM features available there. So, for example, you cannot add any custom commands onto the command bar here to execute any business processes, and there isn't even support for the new business rules feature on the mobile, on the phone client. The key takeaway from the CRM 2013 client review is that when you are designing your solution, you must consider each of the clients that the end user may use to access it. The differences in how a user will navigate between records or entities can have a significant impact on the usability of the solution that maybe seemed to work just fine when you were developing it with the browser client during the development stage. The limitations of form features available on tablets and smartphones may force you to implement more of your functionality on the server side than what you originally thought, for example, due to the lack of support for business rules, for example. So be aware of the additional costs that these variations may bring along into the development process. Now, even though CRM 2013 has introduced the ability to synchronize emails, appointments, tasks, and contacts between CRM and Exchange on the server side, instead of the traditional Outlook client-based synchronization, don't just assume that you no longer need the CRM Outlook client. This is because synchronization is actually a different concept than tracking, as it only deals with the replication of information that's already in the CRM database. A very common use case would be the tracking of new emails created or received in Outlook in the user's personal mailbox. So this feature is only available on a Windows PC running Microsoft Outlook and the CRM Outlook client. So even though the new navigation paradigm of CRM 2013 may appear a lot more consistent and attractive on web clients, very often you cannot exclude the use of CRM Outlook clients in your implementation due to this requirement for the activity tracking. The tablet app opens up a very compelling scenario for delivering simple, easy-to-use version of CRM on devices that many mobile workers now prefer to carry around instead of their heavy laptops. And the fact that the CRM for Tablets app uses the very same form definitions as the web and Outlook client, it means that you don't need to design your forms twice, but it also means that you cannot. So any unsupported components will just be left out of the form, and this is something that you'll need to take into consideration when you develop custom scripts for forms that may be accessed on a several number of client types. Also, longer forms can be cut down, so maybe not all the business rules will work if the fields are not loaded on the form. And there's also no support for integrated features like Yammer or activity feeds or big maps or SharePoint in the tablet client. And due to that reason, it's good to remember that in the tablet client, you can also access the web UI from it. There's always a button available for open this record in the browser, and you can actually get a pretty good view of the data even on a tablet device due to the cross-browser support available today. So it's time for a quick poll question now to collect some data from you. So the question I have for you is this. How many CRM client types do you expect to be in regular use in your organization when the CRM 2013 version is or has been introduced to users? And the answers are ranged from 1 to 4 based on the number of client options that Microsoft offers as shown in the previous slides. If you're working with a CRM partner organization, then please try to answer the question from the perspective of your typical customer organization who rolls out the CRM 2013 version. So you should see the poll question window there on the right side now.
Yep, and maybe we'll give another 5 seconds for folks to make their selections,
Sure.
And then we'll show the results. All right, so hopefully everyone got their answers in. Jukka, it'll be another 15 seconds or so before I can share those.
Okay. So, of course, traditionally, the number or the answer to this was pretty often 2 based on my experience. Not that many people were looking for the mobile applications for any regular use, but I'm interested in seeing what the result is going to be for this the newest version now.
All right. So
and it looks
are you
like
seeing
we
the results
have
yet?
No. Yes. So now the results appear here, and it looks like the biggest share of answers is on options 4 and 3, and only a very small minority will be opting for a single client application. So I think this is in line with my own expectation as well. So the fact that you get all of those tablet and mobile apps packaged into the product with no additional licenses is going to mean that there will be more clients to support and to customize for in the future versions. Okay, thank you for your answers. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be looking at the sort of a bit of a higher level analysis of how the system customizer should approach the task of solution design in the new surroundings that the version 2013 of CRM gives us. Going back to the very early days of CRM version 3, here is a live example of what a customized XRM environment might have looked like at that time. Although later versions of like CRM 2011 introduced more presentation options, they still were built on top of the same navigation paradigm and default form layout, which means that the forms were very form-like, typically consisting of a 2-column list of fields broken into sections. And additionally, you had form tabs to group the fields together, but later on in version 2011, these transfers into anchors on the page as the form became one long scrolling page instead of any tabbed presentation format. While the form fields and layouts were mostly a boring but working way of presenting information about the record in question, the relationships to the related child entities posed a bigger problem in the design. The left-side menus of both the main window sitemap as well as the form windows related records menu on the left, they really had a tendency of exploding with a large number of new entities as you customized your system further, making the UI appear somewhat hostile to a user who was not just familiar with the purpose of each of these records that were shown there. And the icing on the cake was really that every other click seemed to open up a new pop-up window, stealing your focus and resulting in a growing number of browser windows needed to be managed there on the client side. This underlines a characteristic of the Dynamics CRM platform during the first chapter. You really had to know where to look for the information you were interested in. And you stood the best chances of achieving this goal if you were tech-minded and understood how relational database applications in general worked. As a result, you were able to kind of picture the data modeling of the CRM application in your head while you were navigating inside the application. This hierarchy-intense nature of the user interface meant that you were basically always looking at a single entity at a time. The system didn't offer much ways to summarize data across entities, which meant that the more normalized your data model was, the more effort it required from the end users to collect the information from various places to help them understand the big picture. So essentially, CRM was a system optimized for data entry and storage, but not really for data presentation. And it wasn't a very efficient system for sharing information between users either, unless they all know where to go to look for the information and where to see the entry made by the other user. Now here's an example of the very same XRM concept re-implemented and redesigned in a CRM 2013 environment. I'm sure most of you have already seen the at least glimpses of the new UI and read about some of the new features, so I'm not going to do a detailed what's new review of CRM 2013 here now. Instead, I'll approach the subject from a higher level and talk about the paradigm shift that has taken place here. There used to be a clear distinction between a list view and a record view in the CRM application, which was emphasized by always keeping them in separate browser windows. With the elimination of most of the pop-up windows in CRM 2013, the lines between these areas have now really been blurred, even though from a customization perspective, the different configuration points still remain intact underneath. What the end users will have encounter is a much more flat application that it doesn't try to constantly remind the user about the different levels of hierarchy between the UI components or the records presented in the UI. And with the new global navigation bar on top, you can get to almost any other screen of the application directly without going through any intermediary windows. Another aspect that works to reduce the hierarchy-heavy nature of CRM is that we now have a set of features available that allow combining information from several different entities onto a single form. The first method, of course, was already introduced in CRM 2011 when subgrids made it possible to show data from child entities on the parent entity form. So, for example, you could see the list of contacts working for the account directly on the account form. CRM 2013 has now expanded this capability into the other direction, meaning that you can also pull a set of fields from any entity that has a parental relationship to the current entity using a new feature called quick view forms. The out-of-the-box example for this would be showing the number of the primary contacts directly on the account form, for example. In addition to these generic platform capabilities, there's now also a specific new control available for showing the related activities directly on the record form in an element called the social pane. The presentation of the activity data here allows you to quickly expand the content of, for example, email messages and not having to open any pop-up windows for reviewing the data or adding new entries. And you can also see a stream of the latest activity feed or Yammer posts here in the center that will tell you what's going on regarding this record. So if we put all these changes and the new features together, it really means that we shouldn't treat the entity forms as simply a data entry or data storage tool. I think that instead we should see them as dashboards that can collect all the relevant data from around the record into the single view. And it really provides a whole different kind of an overview of situation to the end user compared to the older version 3 style layout that always showed a single entity at a time. The updated default forms come with the CRM 2013 application have also been designed with a brand new layout that highlights this new purpose with this widescreen layout that consists of the three primary columns in the top tab of the form. So when you start from the left, there's always the detailed key attributes of the record itself, the current record you're looking at, and then in the center you have the activities or the feed posts describing what's going on around this record, and finally then on the right side there's data from the either parent or child records that would be most likely to be interesting to the user who's accessing this record. So this brings us to a very important topic that I see as a common pitfall, which has caused challenges in previous Dynamics applications in the past, because oftentimes people have seen the application too much as a database modeling tool, just like a graphical user interface for building the data model. And in my opinion, this is completely the wrong way to approach the application, especially now, because the end user experience cannot be just a direct result of the data model. It should also be designed properly based on using the tools available there for the layouts and lifting data from related entities. So how you store the data and how you present it to the user are really now becoming sort of independent design tasks in a CRM project. You're not so much confined by the data model anymore. But of course, you should keep in mind that it's still a packaged application. It has a set of features, but if you go beyond those available features in your requirements, then you'll soon land in a territory that would need custom code. So of course, you should keep in mind both the data model and the data presentation experiences at the same time. And here's a high-level model of how I approach the design questions, split into 3 levels on this graph. And of course, in reality, the planning work should start from the business process level. That's not shown here, but for the purpose of our discussion, I've left it out from the diagram here. So as mentioned, the data model is often seen as both the start and the end of the solution design when it comes to Dynamics CRM. But what should come after data model design then? Data presentation is what a large share of Dynamics CRM configuration points actually deal with directly. For example, views and form layouts and charts and so on. And you can already accomplish a much more user-friendly solution by spending more time on thinking about the optimal way to present the data to the end users, and not just adding fields based on business requirements. And this is a game of optimization, so including things and excluding things from the UI. And you always need to keep in mind that even though there's no limitations on the amount of data you can store in the system, then there are very practical hard limits on how much you can show on a single screen, and also especially how much a user can discover and absorb with their brains when using the application. And if we go even further from the presentation, then the final level is user interaction design, which basically means that taking all the choices made in the previous layers and putting them into action. This level is about how a user would step through a detailed chain of events, what he or she will give as an input to the system, and finally how the resulting output from the system will meet the expectations of its user. So for example, looking at the common task in CRM, how they would perform creation of a new contract record, for example. So finding out what kind of friction there could be in that process and then trying to eliminate that from it. And in the past, it used to be an area that didn't get much attention in these CRM projects because people just kind of assumed the default behavior of the application. But now with version 2013, there's so many tools available for also modifying the user interaction and thinking about the path and the level of friction there in those processes that if you're not leveraging those features, then you are leaving out a critical part of the platform functionality, really. So coming down from the high-level discussion, here's a few practical pointers that I'd encourage you to play with when using CRM 2013 and explore those features. So the sitemap design is very important now because of the fact that how the new navigation bar is presented. So you won't be able to see as much menu items there as you were before. So editing the sitemap is going to be an important task for almost all projects, I'd say. Another thing is that it's now the default or standard way to navigate to child records from parent forms really is by subgrids. So you should make good use of those subgrids and make sure that the important records are shown always on the parent form. Quick view forms, as mentioned, they can be used in very creative ways. It's not just for pulling data from the parent entity, but also you can use even subgrids on these quick view forms. So explore with that feature and think about how you can reach out to entities that are actually 2 relationships away from the current entity. The quick ref feature is very convenient for reducing the friction in the data entry process, but you really should test it out and especially customize also the quick create forms now, not just leave them as default, because if you've customized your standard forms, then this will lead into mismatch in the data entry and missing data and problems. Since we don't have the ribbon anymore and we have the command bar instead, then there's a lot less actions visible at one time, and this means that you really should also pay attention to optimizing the visible parts in the command bars on the list views and detail forms. And finally, the new business process flow feature, which is looks very good on the forms, and it's a very attractive component to visualize the processes. You really should pay attention to modeling your business process and also then simulating it before you actually start entering it into CRM as into BPF control, because you will take some trial error from my experience to get it right, due to the all kind of different way of thinking about the processes than how you previously implemented them via drop-down menus, for example. So the final part of the presentation is now going to dig deeper into the automation tools available in the new version, and especially the ones that don't require any custom coding skills but can be leveraged by the system customizer. In version 4, we had a new updated workflow engine underneath covers, and it was the first time that the workflow processes became really useful in the platform. And of course, the workflows used to be background processes, so they were handled by the asynchronous service, and it could take a few seconds or even a few minutes for the results to appear there. So they were purely a background process to do things that the user wouldn't necessarily see directly on the UI. In 2011, we got the new feature called Dialogues, which you could describe as an interactive workflow because it had an actual wizard-style UI that you could use for collecting data from the user doing the workflow processing. But it was still built on the very same technology as the workflow, so it was asynchronous in nature if you did some follow-up task in there, unless the user was there then interactively waiting for actions to complete while the dialog wizard was visible there. In the latest 2013 version, we now have a very rich set of tools for automating business processes. The workflows can now also execute in real time if needed, meaning that the users will immediately see the results after they save the record in CRM. Business process flows, as mentioned, are a very highly visual way to bring out the processes into the forefront, and business rules are then a capability that allows you to basically implement features that would have previously required writing custom JavaScript code on the forms, like, for example, dynamically setting the field visibility requirement levels based on some other field values, for example. And all of these features are essentially built-in process automation tools that a business analyst can now use for developing a custom application that's not only about the data model, but also about the execution of the process and also to some extent the interaction with the application. So a very powerful no-code toolkit available in the current version now. Unfortunately, I won't have time to go into detailed comparison of the different process automation capabilities in this presentation now, but I'll highlight a few things from this slide anyway, and you can read more details about this topic from my blog. There's a short URL shown there on the bottom of the slide for easy access to the article series covering these new process features. So the business rules feature is designed for delivering system functionality that executes immediately in the browser when the user performs the action. So when they click on a field, for example. And this means that they are really the key feature for delivering a more responsive application that provides direct feedback and reacts to the choices that the users are making while they're using CRM. There are limitations in the first version, but for example, you cannot access data from beyond the current record, but this is a feature that has lots of opportunities already in the current format, and it's only going to improve in the future versions. Another highlight of 2013 version is the option added for the workflow rules to be executed in real time. And this may seem like just a small checkbox on the workflow editor, but it's actually a major leap forward because by promoting the workflows from the background process into the forefront, Microsoft has actually introduced a graphical editor for building your own plugins. Again, I mean, with business rules, so there's of course more that you can do with if you're writing an actual plugin with custom code in Visual Studio, but the scope of the automated actions that you can cover with the new real-time workflows is really surprisingly high based on my experience. For example, you can now enforce a custom business process by workflow because you can use the real-time workflow to actually cancel a platform transaction. So, for example, if you are updating an opportunity and the parent account doesn't contain all the data you need, then you can throw an error there and stop the user from updating any further records. Traditional workflows and dialogues are still important pieces of the toolkit, but they haven't really been updated in the 2013 version. But it's really now about understanding this, which tools to use for which scenario with the current platform version that offers such a wide variety of tools for us to work with. And I'd like to compare this again a bit back to the early days of CRM to show the long road we traveled since those days. So I found an example blog post called Advanced UI Customization from all the way back in 2005, dealing with version 1 of CRM that's shown there on the left side of the screen. And this example presents a very typical requirements for CRM. So based on the value of a relationship type field on the account record, you should hide other fields on the account form that are not relevant for the value chosen. But if you read through the steps in the article from 2005, then it's quite enlightening to see that back then you had to know concepts like HTTP module, event handler, or style sheet to get this kind of feature implemented. So it basically means that you had to be an application developer to implement such a feature. Now contrast this with the right side of CRM 2013, a business rule that allows you to do basically the same thing. So via the graphical customization UI, we can go and create a new business rule that is tied to a condition on the relationship type field, the value of it, and then we just define actions that say that if the relationship type is supplier, then hide all the fields that are only relevant for customer accounts. And the great thing here is that this output from the business rule editor is almost like a functional requirement document that a business analyst could have written. So anyone can basically understand what it's about without knowing much about the CRM application underneath. And it's really easy to see that this will surely increase the adoption of this kind of small tweaks in the UI that will make the application a lot more user-friendly and responsive to the end users. So we are now reaching the end of my slides here, so I'll just do a quick recap of the key elements that I think set apart the CRM 2013 version from the earlier versions from the perspective of a system customizer. So why is CRM 2013 a paradigm shift and a start of a new chapter for the product? So my top 3 reasons are as follows. So first of all, it can be natively consumed by a number of completely different client applications. So you can customize it once, and then you can users consume it from a client that they choose. So that is a big change in the application design. The second thing would be that while you can bring in your own customizations, you can carry over your customizations from all the previous versions to the current version. Then really getting the new user experience will require some rethinking of your solutions. So you need to spend design work time with your existing solutions if you want it to look like a native CRM 2013 solution now. And finally, the third point is that the type of business logics that you can now configure in the product instead of developing it via custom extensions, it's really impressive. And it's only going to get better in the upcoming versions, and it's going to allow the customers to start focusing on really the user interaction level of solution design. So before I let you go, I have 2 suggestions as the next actions for your to-do list. So the topics that I have covered here in today's presentation are something that I've also written about in an upcoming book release. There's soon going to be a new edition of the CRM Field Guide published that will provide a highly extensive information package that covers all things about CRM 2013 version. And it's been written by some of the biggest CRM gurus out there, meaning the team of Dynamics CRM MVPs. And I'm very fortunate to have been accepted as one of the authors for this new edition. So I have a chapter there, and it's about how to design a great user experience with the CRM 2013 toolkit. So if that's something that you're interested in getting more hands-on instructions, then be sure to check out the book when it comes out within a few days or weeks. And I'll, of course, keep on blogging about the new features in the current and future versions of Dynamics CRM, so don't forget to visit my Surviving CRM blog and also subscribe to the updates via email or RSS feeds. Thank you for your time. That's all the content that I had for you today. And now if you have any questions, then I'll be glad to answer them and also stay a bit longer here if needed, because we only have a few minutes left here based on the original schedule. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Jukka. And yeah, we have several questions already built up in the queue. And probably the one that I'd like to get out of the way first is just maybe a bit of a repetitive one. People would like to know if you plan to share the slides or a version of the slides after the session today.
Yes, there will be the content made available. I have a tendency of publishing in a lot of channels, so just subscribe to my blog and there will be a new article there that contains the slides.
Perfect, and we'll be following up this session with an email as well, with a link to the recording and a link to where you can download those slides from Jukka's blog. Let me start looking through some of these questions here. So one that came in a little earlier with a major change in the UI functionality and updated functionality in every release. Do you expect the next major release to be very different?
I wouldn't think that it would be, because as I mentioned, I think that 2013 was the start of a new chapter, and there's plenty of work now that can be done to sort of fine-tune the functionality in there. So I'm not sure if we're going to have the next 10 years in the same format anymore, but I'd say that it's probably not going to be radically changed in the next 1 or 2 years at least, for sure.
All right. Another question here. Do you know if Microsoft is planning to follow up with an SDK for the CRM for tablet interface specifically? Originally, this person writes, originally they had planned to do so, and then it was postponed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they are, I'd say, maybe taking a bit of a time out there and thinking about how an SDK would then need to be different for the tablet use case. And in practice, I think that many bigger companies who are implementing tablet applications, they really have very high customization needs for the application. So it's not just about how you get the generic functionalities in the standard tablet application, but rather they really need to embed content there and have very customized HTML and scripts there. So I believe that there will be, it's going to be an extensible client, but it will probably take some time for us to get there, because it's really the version 1 from the tablet perspective. It's totally new client framework.
One person asked, this was again earlier when you were comparing, I believe, comparing the different interfaces. Was the tablet view the tablet app, or was it the web version on a tablet?
It was the tablet app. So that's a good point to make, that when you open the browser version from that tablet app, then you'll get to a sort of an optimized UI that was already before the 2013 release. There was a kind of an iPad optimized version of the web application available there. And with the current version now, you get almost the full functionality on all the tablets I've tested it with. So with a Surface or iPad, then you can pretty easily use also the new web app on a bigger tablet screen. Of course, if you have a small tablet like 7 inches, then maybe then you need to, then the tablet app will be a much better fit for that.
Okay, is there a better way to disable tablet and mobile, or must it be done in either security role or entity configuration?
There are security roles that allow you to configure it so that whether a person can access the tablet app, and then also on each entity level, you need to kind of enable the entities specifically for these app versions. So that would be how you control the access to the client. So if you're afraid that people will use the uncustomized version of your solution via those applications, then please use the security configurations available on the entities themselves.
All right. The question here: Can we customize the all related section in CRM 2013?
All related. I'm not sure I follow on what that's.
Yeah, I was a little unsure as I read it. Well, so that was from Adil, and if you want, if you want to send in sort of a clarification, maybe we can return to that one. Okay, another one here that's a bit of a comment, actually looking for your comment in response to this one here. So it says, because of the CRM for tablets limitations, you have to pay attention and balance your client form design and its implication in terms of how it renders on the mobile tablet. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm sorry, the actual question was?
So it was a comment, and it was sort of looking for your response. Because of the CRM for tablets limitations, you have to pay attention and balance your client form design and its implications.
Yeah, exactly. So it's again a question of testing out all the designs. So whichever you plan to then support on the tablets, which entities, and for example, the user will not have the ability to switch between different form types while on the tablet client. So it will be just chosen based on the security roles. So yeah, you have to keep it in mind, and there are ways in JavaScript then to define that a particular script is only executed if it's accessed from a web client. So you can target some features into those specific client versions.
All right, great. We do have a few more questions. I just want to make a note that as people do leave the session, please do look out for the survey that will pop up as you close out. We do appreciate your feedback. It's only 3 or 4 questions, and only should take a few seconds. But the speakers and we really value your feedback. So let me just add that, and let's get back to the questions. How does an IT person get started with basic customization of CRM 2013 online?
Well, it really depends on your background, I guess, but if I look at myself, I don't have any formal IT training or studies, so I'm a marketing person who jumped into using the tools, and it's sort of you can get started very fast there with simple requirements for adding new fields and changing layouts. So maybe I would kind of start with something that is about fine-tuning the existing functionality in the application rather than going out and designing a complete XRM application that does something totally different than what the out-of-the-box CRM is designed for. So, and also then being a user of it, I mean, entering some data in there, and like if you can find a use case for yourself where how you would manage activities related to some objects and then context involved there, then that's really the best way how you also, even if you're a more experienced some customizer, then unless you go to the user experience level and like be a user, then it's hard to get to the higher levels of solution design.
All right. For designing forms, are there web-based form? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to reread this. Are there web-based form design and mobile form design? Are they the same in terms of designing forms?
The web and Outlook and tablet application use the same form definition, but then for the mobile app, meaning the one you can use on your iPhone or Windows Phone devices, that has a completely separate UI. And if you've been using a previous version, then it is exactly the same as with the Mobile Express. So you only have a selection of which fields to take in from the entity and change their order, and then that's pretty much it. So it is much more limited, the designer there, and that is totally separate from the full form editor experience.
All right. Don says, I find it extremely tedious to schedule a phone call in 2013 compared to 2011. Can we vote on items to improve in the social pane?
So what was the last part of the question?
The last part is, can we vote on ways to improve this in the social pane? And maybe
if you think about, yes, I'd say that the Dynamics CRM product team does pay close attention to the items on Connect, and even though not all the features make it to the next release, then that release is the place where you should enter your feedback and especially look for existing Connect items that are regarding the same need or ideas that you have, because when you get more votes onto a single item, then they will shortly show up higher on the list of the product team that does review it. But having said that, for that particular feature, there's actually one article on my blog about how to add custom buttons on the forms that will allow you to create these, for example, phone calls via the full form experience. So you could then also create a scheduled phone call and not directly a completed one. So you might look for a workaround from my blog articles.
All right, great. To follow up on a question from that we kind of delayed there, asking about customizing all related in CRM 2013, the clarification was that it was talking about can you customize the all related activities or all related notes section?
So the one that's shown on the social pane, there's no support for customizing apart from selecting whether you see by default the activities or the posts or the Yammer or the notes feed. So that is a sort of an optimized user experience where the downside is now that there are no similar customization points there as with the traditional activity views. Having said that, so the old views still are accessible there in the UI, so you can bring them up forward and maybe then providing them on the form alongside that sort of a snapshot view that the social pane delivers.
All right. We have one last question here, and I know we're a little over time, but let's make this a last call. If you do have a question, please get it in now. The last question here, Jukka, is there anything new in data duplication in CRM 2013?
Deduplication. Well, the new feature in the RTM version actually removed the interactive alerts for duplicate records, and that was a feature that some customers have been relying on. Then on the other side, it was always a bit of a less than optimal user experience, and now especially with the new client types and the new format layouts, it would have been a bit clumsy, and it was a pop-up window that was eliminated from the feature set. So that's one of the features mentioned there that has been taken away now. But having said that, I think I remember seeing something new about that in the upcoming Service Pack 1, which is going to be released within the next few weeks, made available both to the online customers and on-prem. So that may add up to some features that are currently missing from there. And I'm sure that it's also an area that Microsoft will keep on working on finding a better user experience that fits the new client types for the dedupe functionality. So the rules behind the duplicate detection, they are still there, and they will probably get improved in the future. So don't give up on that feature, but just know that there's with the new chapter, there's some features that have been moved out of the way because they couldn't be made fit to the new UX style at this point yet.
All right, well, we are through the question queue. So, Jukka, let me just say thanks again for attending today and for presenting to everyone. We've had some great feedback already just live in the session here.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I hope we can have you back again soon. And let me just also say thanks to the audience for so many great questions, for being so interactive today. And we do ask you to please take a couple seconds to fill out the survey before you leave. Also look for an email coming up with just a follow-up on how to get access to the slides, the recording of today's session, and maybe some of the upcoming sessions we have throughout this month and next month on a variety of CRM topics. So thanks again, and have a great day.
Thank you.